Okay, this can be a difficult topic to tackle. We celebrate and educate our customers on the fact that when you buy local, you're really supporting a whole network of people. Where I see people make the most mistakes is humans just get in the way. They think that the pig needs to be pampered. And if you take a look at our service case, we sell out just about every week. But for us, our customers have an expectation of a higher quality product. Folks think that you can kind of take a pig and put them on pasture and then stop feeding them a traditional grain diet, but unfortunately they're not cows, even though ours were black and white spotted. The highest risk of getting sick are low oxygen environments. In fact, that's one of the main ingredients for botulism. This has actually really grown up when we first got here, and we've used pigs to thin this out. You can't be in North Carolina and have pigs and not do barbecue. One of the things when you're getting into breeding is you've got to provide an environment that is going to set the animal up to be successful.
Everyone, welcome to Pork Rhyne TV. I'm your host, Pork Rhyne, the Pork Evangelist. Currently, I'm here in Hickory, North Carolina, at Raising Roots Farms with both butcher, pig farmer, and bar owner, Brandon Berry. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. Good to see you. Thanks for making the trek.
So, Brandon, what are we going to be talking about? What are we going to be doing today?
We're going to see all kinds of cool stuff. We're going to take a look at the shop, talk a little bit about why we've got what we've built here, why we serve beer, why we serve food, why we butcher pigs here, and then we'll go take a look at those pigs.
Perfect. Let's get to it.
All right.
Thank you, brother. All right, you got to tell me, what's up with these digs, man? Oh, yeah. And you got the art over here, too. Yeah, talk about this.
So this is our on-farm butcher shop. This was built really with a heavy focus on community and really a focus on what our community expects out of a local farm like us. And that expectation is really about local food, local artisans, transparency about our processes and the kind of food and items that they purchase from us. We carry everything from local mustard from Asheville to art from half a mile away. And of course, our pigs, we've got beef and lamb and different kinds of meat that we bring in, all North Carolina raised, all responsibly raised. And we butcher that here. Folks come in on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. They enjoy a beverage. We serve charcuterie boards, which are made out of all local products. They have a good time, and we've really created a nice relationship with our community here.
I gotta ask, what's on tap? No, I'm just kidding. I don't drink anymore, but yeah, I see you don't just have beer. You also have some meat for sale. So we're also going to talk about what you're actually butchering out here and some of the other brands that you have going on. I do love the fact that you're working with other brands. It's not just you. Talk about how important it is to have a collaborative spirit when it comes to being a small business owner.
I think there's a stigma that farmers are really competitive and they keep to themselves. There might be elements of truth to that here and there, but by and large, that's not been our experience. In our experience, when we approach farmers and we ask to work with them, it's an all ships rise mentality. Everybody wants to work together. Everybody wants to band together and celebrate local food and make it more available for customers to purchase. So we have several partnerships and at different levels. Some of those partnerships are strategic in nature, and we share some of our land to grow with local market farmers, land that we're not necessarily using. And then that partnership extends here into the shop, where we source a lot of our local beef by the carcass, and we break that down here and evangelize that product with our customers and bring that product to their plate. Furthermore, that extends into, like I mentioned earlier, some grocery products like mustards from Asheville. We've got some local folks here that creates their own barbecue sauce and bottles that commercially, and they live just one road away. We've got some folks who are passionate about barbecue rubs, and we've actually worked with them over months at a time to help develop that product and get it labeled and here on the shelf. We order in pickles and salsas and all kinds of stuff in partnership with farmers, and that extends into the arts. We carry local art here from folks who are full-time artists that paint for a living, and the list goes on. We celebrate and educate our customers on the fact that when you buy local, you're really supporting a whole network of people. It's not just me and not just my family that we're feeding with the dollars that customers spend here. I'm purchasing feed for the hogs from a local mill right down the road. I'm purchasing carcasses from local farmers. I'm doing business with produce vendors, with folks who supply ingredients, a local spice company that does all their sourcing and grinding right here in the Carolinas. So every dollar that's spent here, that dollar gets divided up and spread amongst a bunch of local purveyors. And together, we're really collaborating on bringing that great eating experience to our customers. And the whole cycle just repeats every week.
Yes. Yes. Community.
That's it, man.
Team building, bro.
That's
what
it.
I'm talking about. All right. For those who are beer connoisseurs, you know, again, I don't drink, but talk to folks about what you got on tap and why you chose those particular brands.
Absolutely. So a lot of what we do here is just listen to our customers. So some of the staples here are typical domestic beverages, but North Carolina is a hotbed for talented breweries. So we cycle out a lot of North Carolina brews here. Right now, we've got some Appalachian Mountain Brewery on tap. They make a great cider. I'm not really a cider drinker, but their semi-sweet is just fantastic to drink. We've got some kind of relaxed IPAs, nothing too crazy. Those are crowd pleasers. Well, we've got Farmer's Ted from Catawba Brewery. That's a solid beer. And then Schneiderbach and PBR are like staples around here, a nice, easy drinker that doesn't bend the wallet too bad. In case we lose power, we don't want to lose or waste any product. But typically, we carry about a half to a full beef every week, and we'll sell about 1 to 3 pigs, depending on the time of year each week. We'll process that in here. We will process on Wednesdays at an inspected facility. We are a county inspected facility here, and we'll go into some of those details here in a moment. But we're as fresh as a harvest on Wednesday at our local inspected facility. We bring that carcass chilled back on Thursday morning, and then it's in butcher trays Friday and Saturday. Anything we don't sell is immediately frozen, and if you take a look at our service case, we sell out just about every week. It's a farmer's market day, so everything we didn't sell on Sunday is out the door on Wednesday, and we sell most of that.
Cool. Let's get some behind-the-scenes looks at what you got going on.
Great. Come check it out. All right. So here, this is our inspected kitchen and processing room. Mostly what we do in here when we process meat is just packaging, or we'll label it when it's purchased by a customer. Behind you, you'll see all of our spice blends. We've transitioned from some commercial spices into more locally sourced stuff with higher quality. We're very excited about that. We do all of our sausages hand mixed here, all of it's spiced by hand, no flavor packs and nothing wrong with that per se. If you're kind of smaller volume and you just want to get something spiced, there's plenty of stuff out there that's a fine product to eat. But for us, our customers have an expectation of a higher quality product. So we mix everything by hand using Himalayan pink salts and gourmet blends of peppers and all that fun stuff. And then once that's mixed up, it's packaged immediately. We don't actually cut meat in here. This room we've got a dehumidifier running all the time, and this room's kept at about 65, 68 degrees, nice and comfortable. But really, this is exclusively just for packaging and labeling. We've got a little bit of freezer space for bulk items that we might store up, and then a refrigerator that holds a lot of our ingredients for the evening charcuterie boards, which is a service we offer from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. We are expanding a little bit. We just found a used hot holding oven as we ramp up some of our barbecue service, and we can talk more about that later. You can't be in North Carolina and have pigs and not do barbecue.
Hey, man. Preach
right.
your brother. Preach your brother.
All of our dishwashing and sanitary storage is over here, and we really have not taken full advantage of this room. Everything has been designed to be modular. It's almost all on wheels. We can reconfigure and move things around based on what we're doing. But if you've ever been into a commercial kitchen, there's not a lot of walkway because you want to cram as much kind of equipment and processing and productivity into that space as possible. This square footage is expensive to run. But right now, we're very comfortable just packaging meat in here. We can come around and see a little bit of the cut room. And this is where all of our cutting happens. This is chilly in here. This here is 34 to 36 degrees all day, every day. And we bundle up pretty good when we're processing in here. Our grinder is kept at a cool temperature. And when you're grinding meat, that mechanical grind actually generates heat. So we're able to grind more continuously with shorter rests in between grinds because everything's at temp. It helps in certain cases like making hot dogs. We maintain a cool temperature, which helps with that emulsification process. All of our bandsaw, our cutting boards, everything is at a safe temperature all the time. So I can have a visitor like you here. I can step away from my workstation, and I'm not worried about my internal clock going off saying, oh no, is my product secured? This product is chilled from the time it's harvested to the time it's packaged. It might be out of refrigeration for a total of 15 minutes, if that, while we get it in a bag with a label and then in the freezer. We have several carcass dollies that we had custom made. We don't have, as you'll notice, big rails systems in here. We're pretty small in terms of the kind of volume that we're trying to produce here. And I say that, and we'll move at peak, like Christmas time, et cetera. It's no problem for us to store a whole beef and 3 to 4 pigs if we're processing them that same day, no sweat. As you'll see, just about everything is modular. We can move it around. We've got tons of space in here to bring additional tables in. And it looks clean now, but Saturday afternoon, after we've been cutting all weekend, it looks like a bombshell of meat went off in here. You'll notice sort of some of the materials we've built this out of. High quality lights, so you can have strong visual of what's going on with your meat. You can understand kind of those, or visually see the depth of color in the meat that you're cutting. You can visually see and catch any bones or anything that, as you're cutting. And then everything's washable, even down to the epoxy floor. It's a sanitary wreath.
Awesome, awesome. Let's go back into the non-frigid environment.
You don't have a jacket on.
No, I want to ask you a couple of questions. Most of the people who watch this channel are either homesteaders or they're new and beginning pig farmers, or just people who are curious about like how to produce their own meat.
Yeah.
Clearly, one of the beautiful things about producing your own meat is the opportunity to actually butcher your own pig. So talk about some equipment for beginners who are going to butcher or process their pigs soon. It's fall, so a lot of people are thinking about it.
It's time.
It's time. Amen. Amen. It's time. So talk to folks about what are some simple, easy equipment that anyone can use to be able to process their pig.
Absolutely. Some folks swear by having a bandsaw, but the fact is you really only need a handsaw and a couple knives and you can get going. The biggest thing I recommend is the infrastructure for processing the animal in the cleanest, most sanitary way you can. Not because you should be particularly afraid of germs, but because you just don't want any spoilage. You want to keep everybody safe. So I recommend a strong cutting block. You can get away with wooden blocks and traditional butcher blocks. There's nothing wrong with that stuff, but you want to give a good, solid pre-sanitary wash on that kind of stuff. You can pick up like on webstront.com, or you can look in your local restaurant equipment auctions and find a decent butcher block with some inexpensive cutting boards. That's a good, strong kind of base for that. We also like to use meat lugs, which are plastic lugs for storing trim. Those are really nice. So butcher block and a good washable bucket for kind of the process is basic infrastructure. And then as far as knives go, there's all kinds of knives that you can choose from. You've got fillet knives, breaking knives, boning knives. I'm gonna grab a few that are my staples. We use a good, especially for hogs, 4 knives or less, and you've got yourself sort of what you need. So,
brother, you're looking like Wolverine over there.
I know, right? We've got knives for days. So this here is a boning knife. These are really great. This is a semi-flex. When you're moving around bones, you're moving around skin and that sort of thing, this is gonna move with you and cut a little less into meat if you're pulling out tendons and things like that. I typically have on hand a much duller boning knife. This is my sacrificial knife. If I'm getting in there to deboning a roast or deboning a ham or something, I don't really want to be boogering up the edge of my strong cutting blade. So that's a nice thing to have around. For pigs, skinning knife all day long.
Amen.
Yeah, take your time practicing, getting that skin off. It is tedious. It can be tedious. But a good, solid skinning knife's gonna keep you from digging into some of your favorite cuts like pork belly. It can get really skinny around there as far as between the skin, fat, and the lean streak. So it's a strong, great skinning knife and some practice, and you're on your way.
And one thing I'd say with the skinning knife is if you're trying to skin a pig, make sure that the pig has cooled off a little bit too. Because a lot of people are like, why is it so hard for me to cut through my pig, or why is the meat moving around? And what they forget is that a lot of the butchers are doing this in cold environments where the meat is firm. And even if you're hanging your pork or even beef, it gets even more firm. The fat gets firmer, so it's able to be more agile with that.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I think maybe you come back one time, we'll break down a pig and go over some of that stuff.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. You might want to take that pork belly, just to your point, and put it in the freezer for about 20, 30 minutes and really just flash freeze that or chill it out real quick or put it in the refrigerator overnight and take that skin off the next day. That's a good point because you don't want to mess your bacon up.
Amen. Amen. Praise the Lord.
Probably my most common knife is a good breaking knife. This is what I'm doing most of my cutting with. If I'm cutting steaks boneless, or if I'm cutting pork chops boneless, cutting through trimming, just breaking down, or hunking and chunking as we like to say for sausage, I just glide through meat with a good breaking knife. Those, you could probably get away with maybe cutting this one and you've got three solid knives and you're good to go. But honestly, what I'll say is experiment and find what works for you. Knives is not the part of the equipment equation that's gonna break the bank. These are not super expensive. Get on Dexter Russell or Victorinox and grab some knives, play around and just see what you like. I know a lot of folks who cut with a 6 or 8 inch fillet knife, and that's their favorite thing to do. For me, I just have a little bit different setup. It's whatever's comfortable, and you'll know what's comfortable because you'll pay attention to which parts of your arms are sore, and that'll tell you which knife's giving you the fatigue. And so try a different one till you figure out something that's good for you. I'll make one more mention on a must-have. That's a strong, a strong blade. Mine's taken apart right now. This is a 16 inch. I use 16 and 22. You can use 16 for everything. It gets a little tight for cattle, but for pigs, 16's fine. There's times I love growing out a little bit bigger pigs. For maybe 220 to 250 hanging weight, a 16 is gonna do almost everything you need. When you start getting into that 300 pound plus pig, this is gonna wear you out a little bit. So a good 22 inch will cut some larger loins and some ham cross sections a little bit easier. So don't forget to pick up a solid bone saw. That's important too. Yeah.
Oh, also don't forget the honing blades, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is, I believe, probably 12 inch, could be 16. That's probably 16 inch. There are a couple different kinds of steel. This is a smooth and this is a coarse steel. And you'll want to pay attention when you're ordering one, which one to get. You probably don't need a coarse one unless you're just doing this a lot. So we'll use this to actually on our boning knives that are just getting the tar kicked out of them. We'll use a coarse to bring that blade back up to par, but 99% of the time we're using smooth butcher steel. And then just practice with it. There's a couple ways, and we can get technique another time when you visit. But if you're first starting out, you're gonna wanna keep the blade away from you. So you can just draw down, but a lot of folks you'll see, they're just going real fast. But if you're inexperienced, there's a good chance you can cut yourself. Practice safely. These knives are sharp. So packaging, we use a vacuum sealer and we use butcher paper. There's a couple kinds of butcher paper. I only have one kind with me here today. This here is a larger vacuum sealer. This works by essentially removing all of the oxygen within the packaging. If you get a solid seal on meat, a year is not a problem to keep it in the freezer. But this is not required. We are a commercial operation here, so we've got a little bit bigger unit than what you'd really need at home. This sort of thing is gonna allow us to go through 25-pound batch of sausage in a lug much faster because we can get 7 or 8 packages in here at a time. So the larger units for us is all about productivity and throughput. So we're producing meat at a lower cost. At home, you can find these units where they're much smaller. If you're picking one out, you might want to consider the kinds of cuts that you will be vacuum sealing. I can get a full rack of pork ribs in here, no problem. In smaller units, you might have to go with 4 to 6 bone spare ribs in order to get them in the vacuum sealer if you've got a smaller chamber. So these are nice. You can pick up vacuum sealing bags, fairly inexpensive. The one downside is you just can't get them in quantities less than about 1,000 at a time. Even then, It's not breaking the bank. That'll last you years if you just keep them good and clean. You can pick these up off Webstron.com, Walton's Inc. They're very available now. The other thing you can do, and lots of folks are very successful with this, especially deer hunters or folks who've been doing this for a long time, and that's freezer paper or butcher paper. The difference is freezer paper is going to have a wax lining on the inside. And if you really practice tightly rolling that and get all that air out of any particular pockets, you'll prevent freezer burn. And you can roll that up. And I know folks, plenty of folks who get up to a year in the freezer with a good quality wrap as well. So don't feel like you have to do this out the gate. This is an expense maybe you can grow into, and you can help offset that expense if you open it up to some friends and neighbors and offer to vacuum seal for them as well. That might help you a little bit.
Again, it's about that collaborative spirit.
Collaboration, man. Absolutely. Yeah. Beyond that, we've got a commercial labeling machine. That's not necessary. You're probably not marketing a product. Any kind of labeler, you can just get a roll of regular old stuff and label it. But honestly, most people grab a Sharpie and just write right on the bag. That's really all you need. But yeah, a good quality vacuum seal bag with a vacuum sealer can't go wrong if that's an expense you're willing to endure and you know you're going to be doing this a lot, or just a roll of freezer paper. And you can pick that up off Uline, not very expensive at all.
So what are 3 common mistakes a lot of people make when it comes to vacuum sealing and butcher paper?
Great question. So the thing to know about a vacuum sealer, there's a little bit less risk in the butcher paper, but there is some. The number one issue is that you're removing oxygen from the product. And the worst kind of pathogens or the highest risk of getting sick are low oxygen environments. In fact, that's one of the main ingredients for botulism. So if you're gonna remove that oxygen, use a vacuum bag, go ahead and get that in the refrigerator, or better, the freezer, pretty soon after. What I see is folks will vacuum seal and then leave it on the table for a while, or they'll start stacking things on top of each other. That's gonna lead to your product showing like brown spots, or worse, you're promoting some bacterial growth potentially. That same can be true for freezer paper. If you get a really tight roll around there, technically you are restricting oxygen flow. It's a little bit less of a risk, but still be mindful of that. Once you get a product packaged and however way you're gonna do it, it's time to get it in the freezer. Another thing to keep an eye on when you're vacuum sealing, and it's true of butcher paper too, is bone guards. If you are using either a handsaw, especially, you're gonna have some potentially rough bones poking out. That can pierce packaging. Even if it looks like it's good and sealed in the beginning, if you're moving it around the freezer and it's jostling around, those bones have a potential of poking through that packaging over time. Then you've got some oxygen in there, you're getting some freezer burn, and it's either gonna be a less desirable product or ruined altogether. Lastly, I would say just keep an eye on your freezer paper if that's what you choose to use. You wanna make sure you're getting a really tight wrap to avoid spoilage down the road when you thaw that product out. Maybe keep that in mind as you're doing your cuts. Have packaging in mind so that you smooth out rough edges with your knife and you're cutting roasts nice and round so that you can get an easier time rolling and getting all that oxygen out so it's ready for the freezer. That's really the most important things to keep in mind. Time and temperature once you package that thing, and then ensuring you get that best wrap that you can. If you really need to, you can get into butcher twines and netting and things like that to help hold roasts together. By and large, just a tight wrap is what you need to look for, and then right in the freezer.
Also, another thing I'd add to that is how you handle packaging. So a lot of people I see make the mistake of handling packaging where they're holding it by the edge, right? And they're carrying it by the edge rather than by the center point. So how you're supposed to hold it is like that, right? You're not holding it by the edge. If you hold it by the edge, what's happening is it's gonna break that seal, right? You're gonna get oxygen coming in, and if you're keeping it out, that might be where you can get some bacteria, but also you're gonna cause freezer burn later on. So again, something else to consider and keep in mind when you are using a vacuum sealer or even doing a freezer paper as well. Before we move on to the pigs, which I'm excited about, talk about if someone wanted to start their own custom processing. Maybe they might want to go state level. Maybe they might even want to go USDA level. What are some really good resources that helped you figure out whether or not this was a good decision for you, both economically and legally?
Absolutely. I'd say you got a decision to make right out the gate. Begin with the end in mind sort of thing. What is it you're trying to accomplish? If you're looking to get control of your margins or your quality cuts and you want to bring that directly to your customers, butcher shop style, then maybe the health department level is all you need. But what you want to avoid is overbuilding. This is a very expensive place or space to play in. You can find yourself in $10,000, $15,000 bandsaws very easily. So keep in mind like what your volume is, be able to answer that question of what is your end goal. For us, we knew we wanted to operate butcher shop style in the beginning. We wanted to bring higher quality cuts to our farmers markets. So we started out with the health department level of inspection, but we did build certain aspects of our facility to not close doors to state or federal level inspections down the road. For example, the biggest one for us would be the floor. State and federal level inspection don't like tile floor. They want a smooth surface that has no chance for bacteria to grow into it or very limited. So that's a big one. You can put a $20,000 floor down and then find out you got to rip it up in order to upgrade to state or federal level. Not a mistake you want to make. And I think that begs the question you asked, how do you avoid that? There are a lot of resources that are out there that can help folks like myself and potentially you who've never done this before. Those are, start with your local officials. Health department, whether they know exactly what you're supposed to build or not, are definitely going to know the rules around what you can and can't do out of the gate. When it gets into like equipment selection, facility layout, building materials, there are some really great resources. In our state, we've got the North Carolina Choices or NC Choices. Those folks are very helpful both with facility concept, but also just bringing your meat product to market and helping to reach broader or different markets in your area. Those folks were very instrumental in helping us with some of our equipment design or selection and facility design. For a little bit broader resource with more depth of experience specifically with facilities, there are NIMPAN, which is full of folks my size or hobbyists or folks just starting out, all the way up to folks who are operating large USDA facilities. These folks have been very helpful in helping to provide thoughtful feedback on facility layout, the kind of equipment that you might need, and just overall the business aspect of this. After all, you don't need a facility like this if this is just a hobby. But if you're looking to get out there and get control of your margins, you're definitely going to want to make sure you're making good business choices that are going to provide a nice return on that investment.
The cool thing about that is you mentioned two organizations that I sit on as a board advisor as of the recording of this video. NC Choices, we focus on niche meat production within North Carolina, which is really great because North Carolina is actually really a safe haven for a lot of folks who are wanting to do niche meat that's something that you're not going to find at the grocery store usually, or we do help people get into those types of markets if they're selling like grass-fed beef, pasture-raised pork. Also, NIMPAN, which I was wondering if you were going to say the acronym, but if you don't know what the acronym is, it's Niche Meat Processors Assistance Network. I didn't make the acronym, that's just what it is. But it's based out of Oregon State, and we really focus on making sure that people have the resources, like what you're talking about, to figure out whether or not processing is for them. Even if they're having issues with their local processors, how to mitigate some of those issues, how to work with their local processor as a farmer, and also how to be a processor as well. Check those two sites out. You can find NC Choices by ncchoices.org, and then NPAN through, I think, mmpan.org. Probably might be something else. I'll put the website in the description as well. All right, brother, we are out in the pig pastures, and I'm excited about pigs because I love pigs.
Absolutely.
You are raising Gloucestershire Old Spots.
That's right.
You got other people who say Gloucestershire, Worcestershire, whatever.
Worcestershire, yeah. We're probably around 130 or so pigs right now. Once we opened the shop and started moving a lot of pigs through there, our stocking densities really improved and our management system got really dialed in. We raise on pasture, and depending on the time of year and the conditions, that's good or bad experience. We've got a big hurricane coming this weekend, so we're out here making sure everyone's bedded down and getting people high and dry and that sort of thing. So it's a lot of work, but it's really worth it. These pigs are a little bit healthier animals. So you can see the one walking out here, really harvesting the latest forage. This is our summer forage that's now ready for harvest. We did a sunflower, soybean, Johnson grass. There's a few other items in there. and the heads of those sunflowers are down and the soybean pods are nice and fat, so they're in there finishing on that pasture. And then we'll follow that up with a nice cool winter forage like barley, and we'll put some nitrogen back in the soil with some crimson clover, and then follow that with some perennials. We're really trying to move our program more to perennials. It'll save us some cash, and we think it'll just keep building this soil just like we're doing now. So on pasture, we run groups probably in the 15 to 20 range. We like that group size. We'll get groups that are up to about 30, but that can be a little challenging. We get a lot of competition at the feeder and the water nipple, and that can kind of stunt their growth or slow them down if they're constantly competing for feed. We've found a lot of success in our feeder program by running them together and moving them on pasture. Folks think that you can kind of take a pig and put them on pasture and then stop feeding them a traditional grain diet, but unfortunately they're not cows, even though ours are black and white spotted. They do require a complete protein, so we deliver to them a mix of corn, depending on what's available. Like barley hasn't been available in a long time. We'll go to our local mill and we'll have specific blends for these pigs, and they're fed either in bulk feeders in large groups. They'll consume on bulk feeders anywhere, depending on what age they are, anywhere from 6 to 10 pounds of feed per pig a day. So the bulk feeding program certainly runs up the feed bill, but we found that it speeds the pigs' growth up. They're getting all they can eat. It's safer for our personnel to feed them. They're not getting in that pen with 15 very hungry hogs. That can be very dangerous. We found that there's less competition, so when we get them on the butcher block, we're not seeing blood spots in the hams or meat where maybe pigs are fighting or beating each other up trying to get to that feed. And we found more even growth in the group. So when we used to limit feed, meaning we would give them a very specific amount of feed twice a day, we found that the less assertive pigs stayed small until the larger alpha pigs left. And so when we went to bulk feeding, or free feed as it might be called, there's less competition and more even growth within each cohort that we would run. We just moved them out to this pasture here. We're really wanting to prep this here for some of our wintertime or cold season forage as well. So we've got them just beating this grass down. We've let this stuff rest. You can see I've got a lot of dog fennel and whatnot up there. I really wanted that pasture to just have a nice long rest. So I might have to actually take care of some of that fennel myself. Pigs don't really love dog fennel. That's their last choice, if then. But I like to have my pastures get a nice long rest if I can. For these ones here, we'll be planting some cool season grasses and legumes here soon. And then shortly after that, we'll actually be turning this into our higher production breeding area. So we're putting up hoop houses and dialing in our breed program, which we'll get to in a minute. For now, we've got these pigs finishing out on pasture. This cohort is next in line for harvest. There's actually 8 in here. This is one of my filler groups, which is like the in-between of 2 cohorts. We'll have feeders. We've got our breeding stock separated. I've got some commercial breeder lines that maybe isn't my top pedigree of breeders, but they're fine to produce plenty of feeder pigs. They produce plenty of healthy pigs that perform well, but they might not have perfect teat spacing. They might not have hams or characteristics that I might prioritize for a breeding stock. And then most of these pigs go through our butcher shop. This year we took on a little bit of wholesale. We're now in Asheville Chop Shop, and we're putting together a good supply line for them. And we'll move anywhere from 2 to 4 pigs a week for them. And that's about as much wholesale as we want to do. Everything else just goes right retail through the shop. So I guess from here, we should walk through some of the breeding program.
I guess before we go, we gotta just acknowledge it, because some people say in the comment, I know y'all, I know how y'all at. Some of you are like, there's dirt. That's not pasture. How's he gonna say they're on pasture when they're on dirt? Brandon, I want you to defend yourself a little bit.
Sure.
Talk to folks who are legalistic and saying, well, you ain't got pasture, and break it down to them what you're doing.
Yeah, when you're on pasture, you got to deal with 2 things. One, you're dealing with a pig, and you've got some options. You can let that pig be a pig and roam in this field and do what they do, which is tilling up soil and rooting up roots, or you can ring them and stop a pig from being a pig, and we don't ring our pigs. In the situation that you don't ring your pig and you've got a pig being a pig, there's a couple things about the soil that we want to observe. One, yeah, there are sacrificial spots. There's spots where you're going to put a hut and you're going to know that pig is going to beat that ground up pretty good. In those situations, we call those little sacrificial spots. It turns out that if you actually let this rest, it'll come right back. Beneath this crust is soil that is still healthy. Where things can go wrong, and it's gone wrong here, if it's a dry season and you've got pigs parked too long, you can lose an entire field that way. And you've got a mess on your hands. It's probably an expensive one. But what we see going on here is we're standing in front of the bald spot, but the predominant part of this field is all grass, which we will here shortly move these pigs off of that land onto the next spot. That'll just grow right back. And so when you move animals and they tease that ground and they chew down that green matter, it is actually encouraging those roots to grow deeper into the soil. It's encouraging that plant to grow up again, and it's making room for me to bring in seed and plant a new crop of forage. The reason pigs, unlike a cow or other ruminants, are heavy on the soil is a couple reasons. One, we're watching, they're getting into a water hole, which they have to have in order to stay cool. But two, a pig wants to get to the root of a plant because that's where the carbohydrates are. They're not benefiting from the green fibrous matter in the same way that a ruminant would, like a cow or a sheep. They're gonna want the proteins and carbohydrates that come underneath the soil. And surely if we let them on pasture too long, they'll turn your whole field upside down. But if you allow them to tease up underneath that crust of the ground, they're actually performing a service to you. They're aerating that land. So when I come behind them with seed and put it down, that soil is ready to grow the next plot. The other thing you can do with pigs is let them tear up land knowingly so that you can get rid, like that field up there has a bunch of dog fennel in it. If I wanted to, I could let them on that land to take it down to nothing and just reset. You got to do that carefully or you'll end up with a lot of erosion, but you can leverage the pigs is the whole point to work with you and your goals for restoring soil. And as long as you're not neglecting them and abusing the land, it's going to work out for you okay. So that's the story of why you see soil. Now, here in North Carolina, we're actually very fortunate to have this. This is a high iron soil, and that's very helpful for pigs, especially young piglets that are born. It's common in huge commercial CAFOs for like standard iron injections and junk like that. We don't need any of that here in North Carolina. The exposure to red clay is actually very healthy for young piglets.
And then you got whole herds of groups everywhere. We can talk about breeding stock, and then we're going to talk about feed as well.
Sure.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's go on to the breeders.
All right. So in this group over here, we've got some commercial breeders, and all that means is they didn't make the cut as far as my selection for, or my standards for breeders. The piglets that come out of them are specifically for the meat business. They're not there for me to sell as breeders or put back into my program for the pedigree side of the house. This particular herd was assembled from several corners of the country. We've flown them in on airplanes from Oregon. We've gone to upstate New York, down to Florida, and several places in between. We have a mixture of the latest UK, which is the United Kingdom, where they come from. And we have some nice old US lines here. And we're working with both of those lines for kind of the long haul, meaning I need the most genetic diversity for the longest period of time. And the reason I want that is that a lot of inbreeding can lead to regressive genes. Maybe there's mutations or sickness, health issues where too much inbreeding can cause problems. When you're breeding commercially and you're producing pigs commercially, those problems mean big dollars out of your pocket. So we're very careful to select how we breeding pigs, even if they're commercial. So here I'm running a group of 6 ladies with 1 boar, and most of those will probably farrow together, and I'll wean and deal with those groups as one unit. Any of the sows who hold out and don't produce piglets within a very short period of time of each other, they'll get divided and co-farrow on their own until they've all produced their litters. And then I'll take those piglets, wean them, combine them back into a group, sort them, and then off to growing and finishing we go.
I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on what good breeders look like.
Yeah, one of my top producers is right over here. We've got,
Oh, she's nursing.
she is.
Oh, yeah, let's go check her out.
Yeah, let's do it. A lot of folks have their own opinions about how they select for their breeding stock. And anytime I'm selling a breeder to a farmer or a homesteader, my first question is, what is your goal? And if your goal is to grow the pig for the meat business or for its meat characteristics, I might select for certain aspects or characteristics of that pig over others. If the goal is to produce more pedigree lines, then I might look for the best teat spacing, as many as I can, 16 ideally, whereas on a commercial pig, I might be happy with 14 if other characteristics are strong. A meat pig, I'm gonna emphasize shoulders and hams and how long the loin is and the shape of it, because I know when I get it on the block, I want the pork chop to be a certain size. Whereas for breeding pedigree, you can make some compromises every now and then, depending on what your goals are. When I first got these particular pigs, we would call it needle butt, the back of the pig, the hams were sort of lousy. When I started infusing the UK pigs, they had that nice, almost like treble clef, that perfectly round, really pretty pig bubble butt. And so I began choosing to breed some of that out. And that's the name of the game when you're talking about breeding is, what is your goal? What are the characteristics that you need to achieve your goal? And then you start identifying those characteristics in pigs and putting together and selecting for that trait consistently. That has allowed us to get to a place where our meat quality or yield is better in certain cuts. We've gotten to a place where the weaned piglet numbers are gone up. The number of health issues we've had have gone down. So when we every year sit down and pick a goal for that year's breeding schedule, that's really what we're doing, is identifying which pigs we're gonna cull, which pigs we're gonna breed together, and then observe those results. So they're raised here in the forest floor. This is actually really grown up when we first got here, and we've used pigs to thin this out. And what we'll do with the cool season coming is pull them out of here, let this rest, and then do what's called silvopasture planting, where you provide forage here on the forest floor, and then when we bring them back next spring into this spot, it'll have a lot of forage growing right here inside the forest floor. So these are set to wean next week. All happy fat piglets.
So we got a lot of people who are in homesteading now. God bless y'all. And a lot of them want to get into breeding starting out, which is insane. Talk about what it means to actually be a good breeder.
Sure.
What are some responsibilities that you need to take care of and figure out? And then also, if they're wanting to be a breeder to sell to other people, what it means to be a good business person as a breeder.
Great questions. Okay. This can be a difficult topic to tackle.
Oh, go ahead. Speak the truth, brother. Speak the truth, brother. Preach it.
One of the things when you're getting into breeding is you've got to provide an environment that is going to set the animal up to be successful. And so do your homework. Visit as many farms as you can and look at what those environment basics are. Good fencing, quality water, good enough space. Where I see people make the most mistakes is humans just get in the way. They think that the pig needs to be pampered. They think that they need to get in there and wipe its nose, and they're reaching inside the mom during birth. And there's just there's just too much intervention. If you are selecting from a farmer with a quality animal with a good track record, they know what they're doing. Nature knows what it's doing. We have found that the areas we've made the biggest mistakes is areas that we got involved in we shouldn't have. So really get out there and listen to some farmers and hear from them some of those lessons learned. Most that I find are happy to share. But that's the biggest thing I see newcomers to breeding make is it's just they're thinking of it like a baby that they birthed, and that's not what that is. It's a pig that knows what it needs. For example, if you see a mom that's farrowing out somewhere and not in your shelter, there's probably a reason that mom chose that. We have found times where a shelter was too low on a hill, they bred up in the open. It's warmer up there and it's cooler down on the bottom of the hill. And that pig knows that intuitively. So that's the biggest takeaway, I think, is be a good facilitator of a natural, clean, successful environment, and then let a pig be a pig. As far as getting into the business of breeding, that can be really challenging. And the reason is that you've got to make a pretty decent investment in the genetics of your pigs, and then start dialing in a consistent animal, a consistent body type, and start breeding those characteristics out that are undesirable. It can take as many as 2 to 4 years to get a herd dialed in to where you're really ready to get out there and start selling those genetics responsibly to the public. What I see is folks will come at this, and every litter they plan that there's going to be some pedigree stock that's just available for sale. If you're trying to do this as a business and keep a heritage breed alive, then and really do conservation breeding or breeding that's going to make your customers successful in their programs, you got to develop a program that's very specific to the highest quality product that you can produce, but a highest quality product that's going to make your customers successful with their goals. You can't guarantee that a pig, is even a good one, is going to produce breed-worthy quality and stock every time. For me, I'm lucky to get, and I'm very picky, I'm lucky to get a quality breeder out of a sow every third litter, if I'm lucky. It's rare that they're throwing top quality pigs every single time. That doesn't happen.
I hope y'all listening. I hope y'all listening to him. Some other things that I want y'all to think about is when you get feeder pigs, many of you have said, oh, you know what? I think I might turn that feeder pig into a breeder. No, do not do that. Don't you dare do that. And the reason why you don't want to do that is because there's a reason why it's a feeder pig. It didn't make the cut for breeding, right?
Yep.
So then if you're using a feeder pig to have the foundation of your breeding program, then guess what? Now your breeding program is faulty. It's got a lot of holes and flaws in it. And so that's going to affect the grow out weight. It's going to affect the carcass quality, right? It's going to affect how much pork chop and how much bacon you're going to get. Yeah. You get runts and you breed runts. Guess what? They're not going to have long loins. They don't have long loins. They're not going to have more bacon, not going to have more pork chops, right? So these are things that you want to think about when you're thinking about getting quality breeders. Do not go the Craigslist route. I said it here. You heard it here first. Do not go the Craigslist route. I highly recommend working with breed associations or all very experienced breeders, even if they're doing crossbreeding, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So work with those. Check out the different websites for the breed associations that you're interested in. So I know that are you a part of any breed associations?
Yes, actually.
Okay, cool. Talk about that.
Actually, incoming president for the Gloucestershire's Pig Breeders United. We're transforming that club forward and really bringing some exciting programs forward. So we'll be announcing that here shortly. But we've been working with our pig breeding registrar for a number of years now, and I'm so glad you brought him up because that's where a lot of wealth of knowledge is, especially getting into breeding. Typically, they have access to all kinds of resources to help us understand genetics, the implications of some of our decisions. The Livestock Conservancy is another fantastic place to go to get resources if you want to get into heritage breeding. And I think it was great that you brought up the fact that some people are going to crossbreed. You're seeing here a very uniform herd from a genetic perspective. This is a heritage hog, and we just have chosen to focus on conservation breeding. But you can get a lot of fantastic results out of quality crossbreeding and that hybrid vigor that comes from there. So, there's nothing wrong with going out and contacting your local breeding association, getting the top quality heritage hog, and then crossing that with another one that you find from another great source. That can be a very excellent source of meat quality pigs.
Amen. Oh, we need to talk about feed.
Yeah.
We need to talk about feed. What are you feeding your pigs, Guy? Is it conventional, non-GMO, or organic? Please don't say organic. And then what type of feed ingredients are a part of that as well?
Sure. So we are using a commercial feed right now, and we partnered up with NC State earlier this year to work on some of our alternative feed programs. In the past, we've experimented with fodder. We used to sprout about 900 pounds of fodder a day. We've got an experiment with mealworms growing in the basement now. We're wanting to supplement or get rid of a lot of soy or heavy legumes and pull in more natural sources for that. These are exciting programs, but they're very expensive and challenging. If you're going to experiment with alternative feeds, please do that responsibly. We've chosen to partner up with state researchers to help us ensure that we're not going to do anything to harm the pig, make sure they get the highest quality diet they can. Contact your local feed mill if you have one. They can help with a lot of quality blends. Fur trail mineral is expensive, but some of the best stuff you can find on the market. But a strong mineral is important for a pig's diet. You need certain amino acids in order for them to put on weight and have strong immune systems, especially if they're out here in the elements. So a quality mineral might send your feed bill up a little bit, but it's gonna pay you back. All of our grains are sourced here from North Carolina farmers as much as possible. I think the mill might import some things throughout the year that are maybe out of season, but a quality feed mill has been a very useful tool for us because each time we want to change our feed, we're doing that with an expert. And that's allowed us to kind of change grains out depending on what's going on. When the pandemic hit, barley just vanished. So we needed to figure out some kind of alternative mix for our feed. We try to reduce soy as much as humanly possible, but each time that we bring in an alternative ingredient, we're working with experts to ensure that we have the right percentage. If you go too much wheat or too much brewer's grain, it can affect the quality of your fat, it can affect the quality of your carcass, and you don't want that to your end customer. It takes a long time to get that feed program dialed back in and fix that mistake. So partnering up with a feed mill or someone who can, I know for trail, if you buy their minerals, they will help you with your mixtures. If you're gonna do it yourself, same thing, partner up with someone who understands that stuff. For us, that's been very successful in finding a balance between cost as well as quality for the meat and the pigs and its health. Ensure that each step of the way that you're not cutting corners on minerals in your feed is what gives you the most strength for their immune system, especially if they're out here in the elements. It's gonna help them perform. They need amino acids in order to put on weight and thrive. Again, just partner up with your local feed mill and get the highest quality feed you can afford and that your market will bear.
All right, so y'all, I've enjoyed myself. You've enjoyed yourself?
I'm glad you came.
Yeah, me too, me too. I'm glad I came too. All right, let people know, Brandon, how can they, get a hold of you? Maybe they want to come and have a brew with
Sure.
you, or how they might be able to get pigs.
Sure. Right now, our supply line's pretty tight, so we don't have any pigs available, but you're welcome. This farm's open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday each week. We've had folks come in from all parts of the country to get some advice on the facility or talk about herds. We're always down to talk about old spots, that's for darn sure. But yeah, you can reach us on Facebook, raisingrootsfarm.com. There's an info at raisingrootsfarm.com. Those are the best ways to reach out to us, and we'd be glad to answer your questions.
Awesome, awesome. All right, folks, you heard them. Go check them out. And if you do check them out, let them know Pork Rhyne sent you. All right, now.